Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for week 31 of Build Your Stash and Craft. Today we are going to make hot glue stencils and masks. So the difference between a stencil and a mask is a stencil is something that you get the design with your color, and a mask is something where whatever you're putting down like this, wherever it sits, there will be no color. So, and so we'll just go over that really, quickly as we get through this. But I have already done a star and a heart, and I just drew them on my backing paper here because it's easier for me to have something to follow. So I am going to just separate this, get those out of my way for a second. Those are drying. It doesn't really take that long for them to dry, but you don't want to try and pick them up when they're hot. So I'm going to do the heart again. So I've got my heart drawn on my paper here. Excuse me. And that star and heart took approximately 1 full glue stick, just kind of as a reference to what you can, how much you can do. So you're going to want to have some glue sticks at the ready because you'll need to refill fairly quickly. So, and what you're going to do is you're just going to use your glue gun and you're going to draw with it. Now, the thing about these is these are not perfect. These are mixed media stencils. Maybe if you try really hard, you could make them very perfect. But, it's just, this is something to use on your projects that's interesting. It's yours, but it's very hard to get a perfectly even line without any kind of bumps or anything. I'm gonna knock that off for just a second because it's not time yet. Okay. And with the little, whatever you call this, the trigger, you will, when you get to the end of the trigger, you have to let it up and start over again. So you just kind of work it a little bit so that your line stays approximately the same if you want your line to be fairly even. I seriously never try super hard to make these perfect because it drives me crazy. I can't really get it perfect. I'll get the whole thing where the line is almost exactly like the same width and everything, and it's exactly where I want it to be, and, then I'll wind up with a big bump or something. And so, and I'm going to show you what to do about these strings too. So I picked it up, so I want to make sure that that the hot glue that I'm putting back down and the hot glue that's already there, you kind of want to just move your hot glue gun back and forth a little bit to make sure that it becomes one bit of glue. Stop right there. Put some more glue in here. And then just continue around. You do not have to have any kind of a pattern to follow. We will do just a random stencil here too. And I'm going to show you how you can fix a little bit if you've had a mistake, how you can fix that up just a little bit, because I did have a mistake with my star. So I can't see any more of my line, so I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to move this. I don't need that line anymore. Oops. Don't stick your fingers in the hot glue. That's one tip. I mean, it wasn't hot anymore, but I just peeled it off of there. Okay, so let's just go ahead. And what I mean by just kind of work your gun into the glue that's there and then start moving, so that you actually have that as one solid piece, so that when you peel it up, it doesn't come apart. If it does come apart, you can put a little bit of hot glue between it. Whoops. See, I got a big lump right there, but that's all right. You can either just take your hot glue gun. You don't really need to use more glue. You can just take the two pieces, put your hot glue gun on there, and then kind of press them back together. But don't do it. Make sure that you do it like with some type of glove or something on, you don't want to touch hot glue. So now I've got this down here that I messed up. I'm just going to take that off of there because I'm going to make this heart a mixed media stencil. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to just start from one side, because remember, and I'm going to try and make sure that they connect. And I'm just going to put some lines inside of my heart. And when I use this heart, I'm going to use just the inside of it. But I just kind of wanted to have a little bit of interest, so I'm going to put some extra lines in here. And you could use different colors in each of the spaces. You can do it however you want to. So here is my heart. And then we're just going to do strings everywhere. We have to wait for this to dry. But when it's dry, the way to get rid of strings, whenever you're working on any project, use your heat tool. It does need to be a heat tool, not a hairdryer. And you just take your heat tool, let it heat up in the air. Don't point it at your project. Let it get hot, and then just take that heat tool and just whoof right across whatever it is that you have all these strings on. The strings will all shrivel up. You don't want to hold that heat tool on whatever you've done, because if you hold it for any length of time at all, it will melt the hot glue that's there that you want to be there. So, but if you just take it and go whoof in, I think that there's probably quite a bit here that we could get rid of, and I'll hopefully be able to show you that. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it or not. But, so let's just make just like a mixed media background here. And so I am just going to, now in order for it to stay together, you have to have it connected. You can't like make a whole bunch of lines and think that they're going to stay together. You know, they won't stay together. So you can't think I'll use this like for a line stamp. You could take your heat gun or your, take this and make a bunch of lines on a piece of cardboard and leave it on there. And then you can use that as a line stamp. And again, you know, the lines are probably going to be kind of bumpy or whatever, but, and because you've got different layers, it doesn't work perfectly for a stamp, because, you know, like where a big lump is, that's higher than where it's a little thinner. And so what's going to happen is, you know, it's not going to stamp as well, but it will work. I've seen people do that. And so you can try that if you want to. I prefer fun foam for line stamps. That just, you know, for me, I just kind of just go through and just let it fall where it falls. But the problem is what I just did was super, super thin. It doesn't hurt anything except for the fact of when I go to peel it off of here, it's not going to be very solid. So that was not very smart to make it super thin. So I'm going back over where I had done it like that. So you can't move so fast. You have to move a little slower and give your glue some time to come out to make a nice size line. Oh, I've kind of got a messed up spot right here, so I'm going to kind of just go over that spot. And again, now that I'm out here, I want to connect to that because that is already getting hard. So I want to make sure that I touch my hot glue on there, kind of mix them together. Oops, I'm out of glue right here. So I need another glue stick. And this is something that does take quite a few glue sticks, but, you know, and a lot of people might say, well, you know, like you're using all that glue, that's a waste of glue sticks. You know, as far as I could just buy a stencil. You can, But this whole one packet of glue sticks costs $1.07. So and you'll get at least a few stencils out of it so far. This is the 4th one that I've made. And I still have 1, 2, 3, I have 5 sticks left, not including this one. So half of the packet has made 4 stencils. So it looks like it's a lot of glue, and technically it is, but cost-wise, it really is not an expensive way to go. So there we go. I think that, and you can't just do a dot in the middle, because when you peel this off, that's not going to come with it. You could kind of do, I need to connect to this, so I want to heat that up together. Then start my glue going right there. Make a line. And then I could kind of make a circle of glue there. And then make another line to connect it over here. So there we go. So we'll let these dry, and we'll look at the other 2 that we have here. But I'll show you what that looks like. Whoa! Show you what it looks like. I'm not so sure. That's the hard part. The little strings. See, there's strings here and here and here. There's a little one here and across here, here, over here, and here. I don't know if you can see those or not. But after I take this up, maybe if I put it against a colored piece of paper, you might be able to see them. After I lift this up, I'll give it a quick hit with the heat gun and get rid of those. And on the heart, that's what our heart looks like. And our heart has some of those little stringy bits also. And again, this is a good way to get rid of those on any project that you're doing. So I'll set that aside for a second, and we'll take these. Now, I want to show you this one. When I was drawing this star, I couldn't see my line, and I started coming down, and I got way too high. I didn't want to make that little tiny point, so I came back down where my line was, and I put the glue there. But now it's all filled in. That's not going to take any color because it's all filled in. So I'm just going to put it on my cutting mat, and use our X-Acto knife. And I'm going to leave it right now attached to the paper because it's really solid as it's attached to the paper. It will be easier for me to cut it than after I peel it off. You can cut it after you peel it off. And, sometimes you may use it and go, I don't like that big blob right there. I want to thin that line down, and do it then. But if you see something you want to fix right away, go ahead and do it while it's attached to the paper. So I am just going to, and this is not going to be perfect, I'm just going to cut along here and then cut along here and just take this little bit out. And take it out first to see if it looks how I want it. Not bad. I think I'm going to take just a little bit more off right there because there's kind of like a little jot out. I don't want to have that, so I'm just going to kind of trim that off. Okay, I think I am happy with that. So now we're just going to peel it off the parchment. When I do these stencils, I normally use a new piece of parchment. I don't use something that I have inked on or put glue on or anything, just because I want to make sure it does lift off. I'm not so sure if you can see that little spider web right there. Let's see. And that's white. Here. Let me try. We'll try this. Can you see that spider web hanging right there? And so we're going to get rid of that really quickly by just, where's my heat gun? I'm going to turn my heat gun on. I'm going to let it warm up. Don't really stick your hand in front of it because it can burn you. So just let it heat up for a few minutes. And so we've got that little bit right there. Okay, so can you see? here and here. And we're going to try it. Now I'm not sure if it's hot enough or not. I'm just going to swoop right past it. That one's gone. Swoop right past it. That one's gone. I'm going to turn it over because they kind of came down just a little bit in a couple areas. Just give it a quick whoosh. Because that heat melts the glue, there we go. Now that's as much as I'm going to do. They're all gone. But you can sit and pick them off and pick them up. But, you know, for me, it drives me crazy. So that is just a really quick way to get rid of all of those little stringy bits, especially if you've got a really big project with flowers and everything all over and it's going across the flowers, and quick hit with your heat gun, it will be gone. All right, now I do have a little bit up here that I want to cut off. That was a little too thick for me to try and heat it off. I didn't want to do that because I could tell, and here a little bit too, that it would take a bit to get rid of that. Okay, so the difference between a mask and a stencil. Let's take our heart off of here. And it just has a little part down here that I don't want. Okay. Let's grab some paper. Just some regular copy paper. And so with a stencil, when you lay it down, oh, that does have a string on it. A stencil, you put your color on the inside of it. A mask, you put the color all over your paper, and then where your mask was, when you lift it up, it will be white. That's the difference between a mask and a stencil. So we will, let's try some of our red wax color. Just gonna grab a little bit. And just going to come right up to the edge of the heart. And we're going to see how this works as a stencil, and we're going to see about the wax color as far as when we go to buff it off, is it going to spread? Because normally when I buff it off, it's like solid, you know, like, oh, I don't know how I want to say that. I painted the whole paper, so we will need to buff it off. Now, it would be nice if this stencil with the wax colors, actually I do love stencils that stick on the back, that stick down. There we go. I got a whole bunch of the wax where I first started. So we'll lift this up, put that over there. And so that is basically how a stencil works. And then, let's see. Grab this, but I don't want the color on it. So if we take this, and I'm going to wipe off the excess where I got all the extra underneath my stencil. So I'm just going to wipe that off. And then buff it. That works okay with a stencil. It's going to work better with a mask, because a mask, you're going over the whole thing. Okay, so, well, we've got a little problem with our star. And that is, I set it on the hot glue gun. And so it melted. So I'm going to just fix it. Of course, if you have one that's broken, because you didn't get enough there, or it broke when you pulled it off or whatever. That's how you fix it. Just go ahead and fill it back in again and let it dry. So now we're going to let that set for a second. So we'll look at these. Okay. We're just going to carefully peel it off. And again, if you rip it, you can always put it back together. There's that one. And there's that one. So we're going to take our heat gun. Just hang it over my arm for a second while it's heating up. And we're going to get rid of all of these little wispy bits. And we've got some on the heart too. So we will just go ahead and just hit that real quick. Because you would be surprised. You'd think that, well, they're just little tiny bits or whatever. They really do show up when you're stenciling. So, not really hot yet. So it's not completely getting rid of them. Like I said, don't hold it there forever. If it's not going away, hit it a few times. And if it's too thick to go away, then you can cut it off to get rid of it. But all of those little tiny wispy bits can really be, if you're doing a big project, they can really be kind of annoying. Okay, so there we go. And then this one had quite a heavy one here, so I didn't want to try and melt it. I'm just going to pull that one off, and I'm going to pull this one off. There. Okay. Now I want to adjust the point of my heart. There we go. And then we've got this one. All right, so if you want to use this as a stencil, stay inside the lines. If you want to use it as a mask, I'm just going to, we'll see how well our wax color does on our, this is our Kool-Aid dyed paper. So I thought that maybe I would just do an abstract mask and make this into a card. So you can see that the heart has not gone through. Someone asked me, when you heat set, hold on a second, when you heat set the wax, does it melt it and make it go through the paper? And also, does it make the paper translucent? So we're just going to heat set that heart. We'll even heat set it on the back, just so that you can see. The heat setting, it does not make it go through the paper, and it also does not make the paper translucent. And then take our and see there's no color on our napkin, so it stops the color from cutting off. It just sets it there, and I don't always heat set it, and it still stays pretty well, but it does not it doesn't make your paper translucent or soak through to the other side. So I'm going to do this. And I don't want to get my color on the back of my card. So I'm going to just take, I'll use this piece of parchment. Use a piece of parchment or paper or whatever. I'm going to stick something on there to kind of hold that. And let's use purple. I'm just going to get some purple on my sponge. I'm going to get it on there and kind of wipe it off. I don't want it to be too heavy. And then we're just going to rub it into our stencil. Okay, now I really kind of thought that this would be great for the colors, which actually it is. I really like it to do a whole piece of paper. It doesn't work as well when you're trying to stencil with it. The sponge is a little bit like too hard. It doesn't really want to get down in there. When you're doing the hot glue stencils, because they are so thick, you do have to have something that will get down in between all of the between all your lines. So this is not working well with this sponge. But we'll just, you got to kind of work at it. If I've already started it, I kind of want to see what it looks like when I'm done. Might be totally awful. Might cover it up totally with something else. I may cover up bits of it. It might not look as bad as I think it's going to look. But I'm pretty sure that because of how hard this sponge is, this is not going to turn out the way I expected it to turn out. These also work great with sprays. The, the hot glue stencils and masks. So I'm going to kind of quickly finish it up, just so that you can, these do not work well at all, these sponges, for trying to get in between this heavy of a stencil. Okay, so there we go. Not great, but it does show you the difference. This is a mask. You can see where this was sitting. You can see the paper behind it. And wherever it wasn't, it covers everything. So that is a mask. And a stencil is something that you use where it gives you the shape of whatever it is that you're doing. Like our heart here. Instead of giving you, had I gone over that whole heart, it would have turned it into a mask. It would have made a white line here, and the whole rest of the page would have been pink. That would have been masking. So that's a difference. I've had people ask that too. What's the difference between a mask and a stencil? And that's the difference. So we're just going to, I'm going to blot up the extra bits. Because I really don't want to put them all over the whole paper. So I'll just blot those up, and then I will buff the paper. So, not the best example of a mask, but it does give you an idea. It also lets you know that these heavy sponges, and it reminded me to tell you that because this is such a heavy, it's such a heavy stencil that you need a spray or a light sponge, a soft sponge that you can get down into those crevices, or a brush that you can get into the crevices. But you don't want to take a brush and go like this, because it will get under your stencil or your mask. You want to take a brush and pat it up and down this way. You could even use like paper towel. But a lot of times whenever I use a stencil, after I'm done with it, then to clean it off, I just put it down and wipe it off. But a lot of times when you do that, what it does, and it's not going to do with this, because if this was a sticky back stencil, that would be really cool, because it would stick right down. And when you wipe it off, it would wipe all of that color into the areas of your stencil, which is another fun way to get a little bit more of a picture. Okay, so total failure with the sponges. Not really. It did work with the heart. It just didn't work with the more intricate things where we were trying to get between it and really get some definition in those little bits. But let's see, what do we have? Have we made sprays? I was trying to think of what we have so you could see how they look using them in other ways. Other than that heavy, excuse me. I do have a sponge here, a softer sponge. We can try with our heart. And see how well the softer sponge works. Let's do this one in orange. And whenever you're stenciling, no matter what you're using, whether it's paint, the wax, anything, you want to make sure that you don't have it really heavy on your sponge or your brush, whatever you're using, because you want to make sure that you don't get it under your lines. Which is kind of a nice thing about these the heavier lines of the hot glue, is that even if it gets a little bit under the lines, you got a big space there. And so usually you still have your picture. Let's see, I want to pounce this off somewhere. You still have a bit of a line in those areas, even if you got a little bit underneath of it. So it works really good for sprays, which tend to go under your stencils if you have a very fine stencil. And if you want to make this stencil so you can't get over the edge on accident, you can always make that outside edge wider so that when you're putting your ink on there, you don't tend to go. I went over the edge on a couple of places here, and I didn't want to. I just wanted my heart. But there we go. And that's how you stencil. Pounce up and down, pounce up and down. And so there we go. There is our heart stencil. And if we wanted it to be a mask, excuse the phone, I'm sorry. If we want it to be a mask, then we would just do the whole paper with our color, and we would have a mask. Just need just a little bit more. We'll finish this up. Okay, so then I was also asked, can we edge paper with the wax color? So we're going to try that too. So the wax color really will work to do anything that you do with other colors. You know, this is not artist grade, you know, what do you call that? Acid-free, gonna last forever color. This is something to create with. It's a reasonable price to just play with something else. And, you know, it's just a fun thing to do. And that's why I do it. Just want to kind of finish this up a little bit. And a little bit really goes a long, long way with the wax color. So there we go. There's a heart mask. So that is as easy as it is to make your own hot glue stencils. Again, they are more of your abstract art or mixed media art. You know, they're not going to be a really crisp line, although those are crisp lines. They're just wavy lines, but you still get a really crisp stencil using it. So, and again, like I said, they do work real good for sprays, because if your spray seeps a little bit, you still kind of have enough area that hopefully it wouldn't seep far enough to completely close up that white line there. So let's see. I was asked if you could edge paper with the colors, and I had not done it. So we're going to try that. Let's do it. We'll do it with the white. I'll cut it off of there because I want to keep that one. And so see, look, I already edged it. All right, let's try edging it with brown. That's blue. That's brown. And we'll see how it works. Now, the one thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to buff it off. So that would be the difference. It's going to be an extra step that you would not have to do if it wasn't the wax colors. And I actually forgot to do that last one. I forgot to buff that one off. And if I want to come in a little bit, I can do that. And grab a paper towel. It's thunder and lightning out. The dogs are barking at the lightning. So there we go. Of course, it's very messy because I'm being very messy, but it will edge your paper. And you can bring it in a little bit. You buff it off. And there you go. So it does work to edge your paper. Okay. So I think that those were the questions I had on the wax colors. And I was asked to do the hot glue stencils, and I do apologize to who asked. Let me see. No. I keep notes, and then I lose them. Yes, I do apologize, but for the person who asked to do these stencils, thank you very much, because I love to get ideas of what you would like to learn how to do, or what you would like to do, you know, more reasonably. And that's where the wax colors came from, just because somebody wanted to know a different way of doing some color other than they just had paint and markers when I was doing my last series. And so it was like, well, let's figure something out. And there we go. I really like the color of that brown. So let's grab our stencils here. Again, that one didn't work out very well, but I'll do something else with it. You can always use those things. Oh, let's buff this one. Try and find a kind of clean spot. I'm gonna, because this is a stencil, I'm gonna actually try and just pick up a little bit first before I start spreading it around. There we go. And then get it. You know, I have such clean paper towel here. Buff it off. There we go. Now that one is buffed. And it does give it kind of a neat little shine. And let's see, what did I do with the heart? Because I was curious. So we've got that. Oh, here's, no. What did I do with the red heart? Ooh, here comes the thunder. Well, I've lost it. Y'all are probably telling me where I put it, but I don't see it. It was a full... Is it on here? It is. Okay, there it is. Okay, I was wondering because I heat set that, was it still a little bit shiny? And it is still a little bit shiny. So that's kind of cool. Something I hadn't really paid much attention to before. You can really see it on this one. Of course, that one, did we buff that one? I don't remember. You can still really see it nicely. So there we go. Those are a few questions answered about the wax colors. If I didn't answer your question, I am sorry about that because I forgot to write them down before I came in to do this video. But that is how you make your own stencils and masks. They really do turn out nicely. And that way you can have any type. Where did our little star go? It got set aside. Well, that way you can have, if you want hearts or circles or squares, just draw a circle on a piece of paper behind your parchment, and it will at least give you a little bit of something to go on. But I think that these are fun to do. Thanks again for the request. And sorry, I'm just kind of like blah, blah today. I'm just kind of rambling, but it's one of those kind of days. So I really do appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for stopping by. And I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.